So I'm gonna start off by saying I am not a fan of fur coats. I used to have a little pet chinchilla. She was the softest thing on the planet, and quite frankly, it upsets me every time one of these little poor guys are killed in order to make it coat. Nevertheless, we have to make a whole bunch of these fur coats for our very, very annoying artisans. We might as well start so we can get this over and done with. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Anno 1800 Beginner's Guide series. Thank you all for being here. Today we're going to be discussing probably the most difficult part of the artisan chain, which is fur coats. Now we started already with getting a New World island to bring over cotton fabric to Roma, but that's only one part of this chain. The other part of the chain is to actually provide the fur. Now, the thing with fur is that it does require an island fertility, okay? So when you are scouting around to find some islands, along with trying to find red pepper and hops, right? You can even look for grapes. You also want to be looking for fur abundance. We luckily were able to snag this island before the other competitors, and this island also has fur abundance on it. So we don't need to have anything substantial here, okay? At least not for now. The main thing with Messena is that we're going to be focusing on a whole bunch of hunting cabins, because the only way that we can get the fur is by a hunting cabin. Please note that later on you can optimize hunting cabins to become a lot more effective, because right now it'll only produce 1 ton of fur every minute. That is really slow. That being said, our island here is pretty expansive, so we do have multiple areas that we can go to put down a whole bunch of these in order to get a whole bunch of fur. So what we can do now is try to pre-plan where we want these. Now they are very similar to putting them down, similar to like a lumberjack hut, in which case they have a radius. And unfortunately, this is the problem with them. Because they don't actually have farm fields that you attach them as a module, you're gonna have to space these out. That makes having them around a trade union potentially problematic. There are ways to make sure that it is done properly, and we will discuss that in the future when we get to that point. But for now, what I would like to do is try to put as many of these down as possible, because they don't need a lot. They only need 10 farmers and 6 timber, and we have plenty of both. So let's just go ahead and start. I'm gonna probably dot them around our little village. So we'll put one right over here. And you can kind of overlap them, but not too much, because if you go a little bit too far in, they'll start to become less than 100%. It also does factor in the forest density, so always bear that in mind as well whenever you're putting these down. So we'll put down 6. I think that's a good way to start. And as always, we're going to have road connections going to and from the warehouse. And this side is actually going to be pretty good, because you're kind of close to the harbor area, or at least this one. I don't think this... No, this one can actually make it. That's pretty cool. And what I would like to do is also put down a warehouse back here. Makes life a lot easier, because we want to make sure these guys actually get to the warehouses as quickly as possible. And we have the maintenance costs fulfilled, pretty much. We have enough money coming in, so it's not that big of a deal. So what's going to happen here is essentially they are going to hunt. That's literally the long and short of it. But the problem is that because it takes so long, hunting cabins would benefit probably the most at this stage to have paved roads, because you want to get the goods to the actual harbor or to the friggin' warehouses as quickly as possible. I don't know why I said friggin' there. My brain decided it wanted to stop working for a second. So what I'll do is, you can always go to the upgrade tool and also upgrade the roads as is, but I'm just gonna, like, physically go over here and click and drag. We don't need to worry about him. So we're starting to get our first fur in here, and while we let this island cook for a little bit, we're gonna head back to Roma, because we're gonna have to start setting up the complex. The cool thing is that since the last episode, we have one ship that's bringing over our cotton fabric from the New World. So right now, Roma has, let's see, 93 cotton fabric. That's pretty good. And we're also bringing in some rum, so we can kind of consider stopping the trade with Madame Kahina, but we'll let it go for a little while longer. What we have to do is we have to set up this complex, and the way that these buildings are interesting. They're not the largest on the planet, but they're okay. Like, you can definitely optimize them later on. They have a decent size to them. So what I would like to do is probably get them going over in here. And the thing about this is, right, that the fur dealers themselves are going to need 200 artisans, and they will make a fur coat one every 30 seconds. That means we're going to need 2 hunting cabins for one of these. Fantastic, right? I think in total, right now, we can have about 3 of these fur coat dealers. But I don't think, honestly, we're going to need to overproduce that much. If you would like to, and you have the means to do that, rather, let me tell you what you can do with it. You can go to Madame Kahina, and you can sell them. It is a okay basic need to sell for her. The problem is that this is not a very optimized chain at the moment. Later on, you can actually change the requirements for what you need in order to make fur coats to iron and wool, which are 2 very, very easy things to come by. The moment you have those specialists, then you can start selling a whole bunch of these. But the problem now is that we're relying on 2 regions to bring in the stuff for one particular building, which is very difficult. That's what a lot of Anno players, when they start out, they're kind of just like, well, what the heck? What the hell? What am I supposed to do with this? It's a natural question. I was the one that asked that question so many times. I watched guides on how to deal with fur coats because I hated it. So we'll go ahead and put down 3 of these just to start. Okay. And we will also put a warehouse in the back here. Now, because later on I am planning on optimizing this chain, I'm going to put down a trade union from now, just so I know that later on, this is where I'm going to hunker down, and I'm going to make sure this chain is going to be even more effective, okay? Let's head on back to Messena. Messena now has 14 fur in there, and unfortunately, like, it is what it is. We can't go any faster with this, not unless we do some stuff. We can always increase the working demands and conditions, but I don't think it's, like, really that necessary to do at the moment. By the time we go to and from, we should be fine. Alternatively, we can make some more if you would like. It is possible. So we can go over here and potentially put, like, maybe 2 or 3 more down. So we can put, like, 1 over here, and we'll put 1 over here. That's not too bad. Go ahead and get the roads to them already. So we don't want to mess with that one. As you saw, it popped up with a little message, which means that if we would have built something in there, that might have actually gone down to like 90 some odd percent, and we don't want to see that happen. So this will make it all the way over there. I need to fix up this section of the road, even though we have enough bricks, so whatever, it is what it is. And we'll leave it at that. So what we can do now is we do have our clipper over here, and I'm going to create a trade route with the Dulibella. Is that how you say it? Dulcibella. I think that's how I need to change the damn name. There's certain names in these games I can't ever pronounce. I don't really care to either. So I'm just gonna get 50 furs in there because I don't think that this is gonna be too much. Alternatively, you know what? Let's figure this out. Let's do this. We'll use the Future's Dawn because it's a schooner. It's smaller. I would like to leave the clippers for something a little bit more effective than just transferring a whole bunch of fur, right? So we're gonna accept this. And we are going to create a new group here. I'm making a whole bunch of new groups just so I can see what's coming from where and at one time. So we can rename this group from Mess to Roma. And then we will see that this is what's coming to that particular island. So we're going to have that little schooner come over here and take up as much of the fur as possible. So we are producing a fair amount, I think. 8 per minute is not bad. Until this goes to and from, we should be okay-ish. Problem is, we're having a little bit of a, what is it? It's probably the schnapps are fluctuating. Yeah, that's what's happening. We're not providing our people with enough schnapps, and that's why it goes up and down constantly. It is what it is. Gotta love it. Probably, if you were to check at the other NPCs, they might actually sell it, so she will not do that. She has no goods on offer. That's fantastic. Love to see it. And he would actually, he has some. So what I'll do is I will set this to buy because I don't want to get any more farm fields built up here and waste my population in order to do it. And we'll just let that work. So let's wait until the Futures Dawn brings in some of these fur coats and we'll get ready with the whole fur coat dealers. Okay, so we got our first shipment of furs in here, not fur coats. We have furs in here, and we actually were able to bring over 48. That's a lot. So we might actually consider going over to our routes and just as a precaution, putting an additional 50 in here, just in case they have more, and they can constantly keep shipping it over to Roma as much as possible. So now we have the goods that we need in order to get these buildings going, and the very first thing we're gonna have to build is this warehouse so we can have these guys just deliver right in here, and we'll go ahead and build our very fur dealer. Now, the most important thing here is to check to see, is one actually going to be enough? And you would go over here to your production chain, and indeed it would be. One would in fact be enough for our current population of artisans, and that is fantastic. That means we're not going to have to worry too much with regards to the resources that go into this particular chain, and we can kind of just big chill a little bit. We can take it easy, let these guys do their thing, and if you go to click on it, you'll see that they're already starting to produce it. Alternatively, if you're ever like wondering whether your building is actually processing something, if you have an industry like this, do note that their smokestack is 9 times out of 10 going to be working. So we see a whole bunch of white smoke coming out of the fur coat dealers. Alternatively, it is the exact same when you deal with these industrial chains. As you can see, these guys are not working. So if you don't have the icons on, you'll know they're not working because obviously nothing is turned on. The rest are, because they all have smoke coming from their smokestacks. That's just a little way that the game shows you that it's still doing something, you know? That's always a good thing to see. So right now, we're just going to have to wait to see our fur coats be, distributed amongst our artisans, and we'll probably be able to build the last item necessary to get these guys up to engineers. So let's fast forward it until they actually have their goods, and we'll be right back. Alrighty, so our people are now being given fur coats. This, again, is probably the most difficult part of the artisan chain because you're bringing stuff from the new world over here, along with rum. So both of these items are what turn people off the most to the artisans. It is easy. The problem is just the thought behind it, that I have to bring in something from some other location. That's what makes people a little bit like, whoa, how can I make this a little bit easier? Well, let me show you one way you could potentially do that. We have enough money to spend here, so let me just go ahead and show you. There is a chance, let me actually see if I can speak English properly. There is a chance that Eli will provide to you a specific lady by the name of a costume designer, early game, that will be able to help you out with the fur coat dealers. Now, if we were to go through all these, you notice how they all have like some sort of really cool buff to them. That's essentially what they are. They are designed to make it so your game becomes a little bit easier. I wouldn't recommend like constantly spinning here because the more you spin, the higher the reroll cost is. So just do it a couple times. If you happen to come across a costume designer, great. If not, don't worry about it. We'll go up until we reach like 50,000 for the rerolls and see if we can actually find her. If not, then we'll just call it a day. So we'll do one more. And it does not look like we have it. One more. So like this person would actually be pretty good on Messena because the hunting cabins would actually produce extra goods in wool. That's one little good way of showing you guys how important it is to have specialists, but that's not the main goal of this particular episode. Unfortunately, my luck remains to be terrible, and we did not find the costume designer. But now we have everything that's necessary as far as the, created goods for our artisans. The only thing that's really left is the university building, which will unlock at 1,500 artisans. So I will have to do a little bit of tweaking with our city to make sure that we have enough to reach that 1,500 mark, plop down the university, and then we can go into the engineer chain, which is, in my opinion, a lot of fun. So Hopefully you guys were able to digest a lot of what the fur coats are. I will tell you that later on it can be a very lucrative trade opportunity, especially with Madame Kahina. Those crazy amount of costs. You know what? Even here, considering how they don't even want that many fur coats, we can even start selling some to her. I would just hold off a little bit because there's a little bit of an easier way. It takes longer, but it's passive, and you don't really need to worry about it that much with regards to resources, and that's through weapons. We can talk about that in the next episode. So, hopefully you guys learn how to get through this fur coat business. It does take some setup, but I am more than confident that you're capable of doing it. As always, please consider like, commenting, subscribing, hitting that bell button, sharing it with your friends. Thank you so much for being here, supporting me, supporting the channel, and I will catch you on the next episode, my Rantians.